Japanese games have been a big fixture to the PlayStation 4's library, and that definitely hasn't changed in 2019. 4 months into the year, we've already had a plethora and a variety of different Japanese titles. That's what I want to highlight in today's video, specifically the top 10 best Japanese PlayStation 4 titles of 2019 so far. Now, we're not limiting it to JRPGs, just Japanese titles in general. However, I did exclude some games that are catered towards a more Western audience as well. Games like Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry 5, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Yes, they're Japanese titles, however, I wouldn't put them in the Japanese category where they cater towards more of an anime fan or have a very Japanese aesthetic to them. You guys get the idea. While they were developed in-house by Japanese studios, those games do cater towards a Western audience as well, or a more mainstream Western audience, where in the case of these games, it does follow that case of that more niche Japanese anime style. So with that being said, let's get right into it. And kicking things off, I'll mention the biggest Japanese game release of 2019 so far, at least arguably, and that is Kingdom Hearts 3. We had been waiting so long to get our hands on Kingdom Hearts 3, originally announced back in 2013, but leave it up to Square Enix to leave us waiting for years. Of course, they had to put out Final Fantasy 15, and then the work moved to Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'm always a little bit skeptical when it comes to long in development Square Enix titles. I mean, FF15 left a lot to be desired, but Kingdom Hearts 3 was a rather compelling JRPG. I enjoyed my time with it. Was it perfect? No, some of the storytelling elements left a lot to be desired. However, from a gameplay standpoint, from a presentation standpoint, all of those elements are incredibly strong. And as far as the gameplay is concerned, I would say that is absolutely top tier and among the best the series has ever seen. It's just incredibly satisfying. And from that standpoint alone, the game is worth playing. Again, the storytelling could have been a little bit better, but honestly, at this point with Square Enix Japanese RPGs, I have a very low bar in terms of story expectation, and Kingdom Hearts 3 was still coherent enough. So definitely a great game, and with Square Enix, it's always a little bit hit or miss, but I'm happy that Kingdom Hearts 3 did turn out to be a relative hit. Next up, we have God Eater 3. Now, God Eater is a very interesting game in that most people that play God Eater will obviously draw comparisons to Monster Hunter. Is that fair? Probably. God Eater does have a lot of resemblances to Monster Hunter, and Monster Hunter being a Japanese game as well over in Japan, God Eater is actually a very successful game, but surprisingly, over here in the West, it seems like more gamers just flock towards Monster Hunter. Obviously, just from a presentation standpoint, Monster Hunter is a little bit more westernized, but nonetheless, God Eater is a very satisfying action-adventure title in its own right, and it follows a lot of the similar mechanics, and it does have a very slick anime presentation, and it definitely has its own elements as well, and I would offer you the fact that God Eater 3 has a much better story than the Monster Hunter titles. I'm not saying that the story is anything to write home about, but it's decent enough, and if you want a Japanese action-oriented title that has its similarities to Monster Hunter, has a decent story in there, God Eater 3 will definitely fit the bill. Alright, the next game is something that I was really hyping up going into its release, Tales of Vesperia, the Definitive Edition. Wow, oh wow, I was so excited for the release of TOV, especially in this form, because Tales of Vesperia originally came out in the West back in August of 2008, but it was released as an Xbox 360 exclusive, which is very surprising. That's not something that typically happens where a Japanese title is an Xbox 360 exclusive, but nonetheless, it did get a PlayStation 3 version a year later with a bunch of new content. Unfortunately, that version of the game never made its way over to States until the release of Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. It includes all that new content. It doesn't really do anything substantial in terms of refining the game. However, what you get here is absolute quality, and what I love about Tales of Vesperia is the characters. The characters are also likable, and it has one of the best main characters in a JRPG that I've ever seen in YoRHa. He's just nonchalant and a lot more likable than your typical JRPG main character, at least in my opinion. It still holds up really well from a visual standpoint. And altogether, it's got a lot of content as well. You're talking 50 to 60 hours of gameplay, and then if you want to do everything, obviously that's going to be extended a little bit. The story isn't anything super compelling. Definitely would give that a recommendation, especially if you've been a fan of the Tales of games. Next up, another title that made its foray to the PlayStation 4, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. This is another title that I was really hyping up ahead of its release. Now, it should be noted that this is the first game in a 4-part series, so it's going to take a long time for The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel to finish up. Part 2 will be dropping in June, and then Part 3 will be coming stateside for the first time as a PlayStation 4 exclusive later this year. Trails of Cold Steel 1 had already been released on a plethora of other platforms, PlayStation Vita, PS3, PC, so a lot of people had already played the game, but to see it finally come to the PlayStation 4, that was great. The issue with Trails of Cold Steel 1 is that the story does start a little bit slow, and it's a lot of setting the table. However, the characters are compelling and unique enough where I still felt it to be a rather engaging game. You've got some great music in there as well. Visually, nothing to write home about. Of course, being originally a PlayStation Vita title, but nonetheless, the story really ramps up halfway and towards the latter portion of the game, and then it gets incredibly engaging. And then I'm telling you guys, when Trails of Cold Steel 2 drops, that game is going to be awesome because you're getting into the thick of the story right away. But I don't want to give away too many spoilers. Just know you have a very good JRPG here with a lot of longevity, a lot of content, especially if you're trying to do everything. It's an experience that'll take you quite a while. Next up, this was a re-release of an amazing game, so I want to give it a mention anyway. NieR Automata Game of the YoRHa Edition. Now, NieR Automata is one of those titles that has really been holding up in value. If you guys have been following this channel, you know how I always talk about great game deals, and just about every game these days go on sale rather quickly. NieR Automata, on the other hand, is one game that, yes, it released all the way back in March of 2017, but to find this game on sale is rather difficult. That's why I was so happy with the release of the Game of the YoRHa Edition, because you were knocking down the MSRP to $39.99 right away, and you were throwing in some bonus content. Now, is that bonus content anything to write home about? No, it's a lot of avatars, a lot of in-game items, nothing too substantial to the overall gameplay. However, NieR Automata fundamentally is already such an incredible game that just getting the game itself with a little bit of extra for $40 was already great, and now it's on sale on the PlayStation Store for $30 as a part of the Golden Week sale. If you've yet to play NieR Automata, do yourself a service, pick the game up. It is absolutely worth it, and you're gonna have a great time with it. And of course, it's a Platinum Games title, so you know what you're getting in terms of gameplay, stylish, action-oriented gameplay, and overall, it is a great action RPG. Next up, we have a recently released title from Spike Chunsoft in Zanki Zero Last Beginning. This is another title that I was looking forward to heading into its release, and it offers a very interesting story, and you've got some good dungeon crawling gameplay in there as well. The game is played from the point of view of 8 protagonists. Throughout the game, you'll hunt for materials and food while fending off monsters in real-time battle environments, but don't forget to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. You have to do all of that with every life cycle lasting only 13 days. Each clone's stats, abilities, and capabilities differ as they grow from youths to old age. Very interesting game. Spike Chunsoft has low-key become one of the great video game developers of the last year, and Zanki Zero, while it's not perfect, offers a lot of unique content, and that's what I would really say about this game. It's incredibly unique, that I would give it a recommendation even though you are dropping, what, a full $60 on it, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but nonetheless, because it's a more intricate game than you typically come across, I would give it a recommendation. Next up, Phoenix Wright finally made its foray to the PlayStation 4 with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. This includes the first Phoenix Wright game, and those were originally Game Boy Advance titles. I know a lot of you in the comment section are gonna be like, no, they were Nintendo DS games. No, over here in the West, the Nintendo DS versions are what we got. The game actually originated as Game Boy Advance and released back in like 2001 in Japan. Nonetheless, the games have been refined, but keep your expectations in line visually. Obviously, they're just visual novels, so they're very much oriented on the storytelling, and you'll see some comparisons to Danganronpa being made. However, Phoenix Wright is a little bit more difficult. You really have to pay attention to everything, where in the case of Danganronpa, I mean, you can go through that game and it'll kind of hold your hand. In the case of Phoenix Wright, there is a certain level of challenge here, and you do have 14 episodes in total spanning the first 3 games in one gorgeous collection. Solve the intriguing mysteries behind each case and witness the final truth for yourself. The great thing about this was it was released at a competent price point of $29.99. This was anything more than that, like $39.99, $49.99, or God forbid, a full $60. Obviously, I wouldn't give it a recommendation, but $30 for it, that's a great buy, and would absolutely tell you guys to pick it up, especially if you're looking for a story-driven title with a lot of intrigue. Next up, we have Phoenixstella Link. Now, these Fate titles are usually really hit and miss, but Phoenixstella Link just turned out to be a really good hack and slash game. Even if you strip away fandom from Fate, which if you're a fan of the Fate IP, obviously that's going to enhance your overall experience, but if you actually just judge it as a hack and slash game, it's a very well-made hack and slash game. And then of course you've got the gorgeous presentation, you've got the Fate IP working for it, and if you are a fan of that IP, it's going to make the overall experience better. But if you just want a compelling hack and slash title, man, Phoenixstella isn't a bad buy, especially if you can find it at a discount. Next up, here's the visual novel for one of my favorite anime of all time, and that is Steins Gate. We had it released in the form of Steins Gate Elite, a remastered title with animated scenes from the anime, creating a brand new immersive experience. And I could talk about Steins Gate forever. I watched this anime so many times and I was so compelled by it, and the incredible thing about the anime, as compelling as it was, as great as the story was, they had to strip away a lot of the narrative pieces because, of course, it's a 24-episode anime versus Steins Gate Elite being a very lengthy visual novel with a lot of different routes to go. and through the game you play as a group of young tech-savvy lab members. Their experiment to push boundaries of time spirals out of control. Things go awry. It's a super psychological game. I just can't say enough good things about it. I know for a lot of you guys, delving in with the visual novel might be a little bit too much of an undertaking, so what I would honestly recommend is probably watch the anime first. They also did a follow-up anime, Steins Gate 0. That is tremendous. They did a movie. Steins Gate 0 also has its own visual novel. Steins Gate as an IP is just so incredible, and I wish more people knew about it, because from a narrative building standpoint, the storytelling, that is all top-notch, and character development. Can't say enough good things about Steins Gate. Steins Gate Elite, a remastered version, an improved version of the visual novel, would definitely give that a look. And lastly, I do want to give a shout to Onimusha Warlords. Onimusha was a game released on the PlayStation 2 way back when, and it's one of the more iconic PlayStation 2 titles that's kind of built that up over time, because when Onimusha released back in the day, yeah, it was received pretty well, but it wasn't this commercial blockbuster, and it goes to show there hasn't been a brand new Onimusha game in a very long time. Warlords brings the first game onto the PlayStation 4. Yes, it does show its age a little bit, but Capcom got this one right, just like Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. They priced it accordingly at $19.99, and while it has some dated gameplay, overall you still have a pretty cool game to get into here. And for $20, if you want an action-adventure title with that Japanese aesthetic, and it really does that well, Onimusha Warlords is a pretty good buy. And that's gonna conclude this video. Again, just 4 months into the year, a little over 4 months, we've had a lot of great Japanese PlayStation 4 titles, and the rest of the year will bring more stuff. Of course, we've got the follow-up to Trails of Cold Steel, we've got games like AI Siminium Files, and so much more. Our World is Ended. I can point to you a lot of games, a lot of them I'm missing off the top of my head right now, but nonetheless, that's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.